Welcome to First Chapter Friday. This week we're going to take a look at How to Train Your Dad by Gary Paulsen. Gary Paulsen wrote some other favorites like Hatchet and lots of adventure stories. He also wrote Lawn Boy, which is a comedy, and he just passed away this last October. So unless he already had something else turned into his publisher, this could be his last book, and it is a comedy. And so far, I'm really excited about what I've read, and I hope you like it too. Here we go. Dumpster Wisdom. You need to know a little bit about me before you hear all the rest of the things I'm going to tell you about my life. Otherwise, how will you know enough to understand what matters and where it all fits and how everything goes? So, my name is Carl Hemsvet. Don't even try to say my last name. I'm not even quite certain of how it should be pronounced. My first name came from my mother, who passed away when I was 6 from some kind of disease mixed with a bunch of complications, which is how my dad puts it. She was wonderful, even if I only have foggy memories. My father says she was the best, but talking about her makes him remember she's gone, and it hurts. So we hardly ever talk about her. Anyway, my mother called me Carly, which would be all right, except it makes people think of a woman singer from before I was born. And I'm a boy who can't sing a hoot, so just call me Carl. So I'm Carl, and I can't sing, and my age is just at the line between 12 and 13. And I look like any other 12 to 13-year-old boy. Here and there a pimple, hair that isn't cool, glasses so I don't squint, a body that seems to belong to some other person who doesn't like me very much. In addition, I'm not good at sports, which I don't even try anymore. I'm average to poor at school, which sometimes I like and sometimes don't. I've got no brothers or sisters, so it's just me trying to make a sense of my father. More on that later. And finally, according to my dad and the reason for this book, I'm rich. Only I'm not. Not even close. But that's not how my dad sees it. So, first week of my summer vacation, and we were sitting on the edge of a dumpster in the back of the grocery store that's in the mall, sitting up on the edge looking down, smack in the middle of approximately 132,000 flies. Just sitting there looking for stuff to salvage because my dad says stores throw away a lot of perfectly good food. When he suddenly announced, we have a rich life. Really, he said that as we were dumpster diving for food. And if that's not crazy enough, here's how we live. We have a small trailer outside of town down along the river on 5 acres of dirt and mud, with 4, you can count them if you want, trees. Not big trees, no shade really, just 4 skinny trees next to a semi-scroungy trailer. There's electricity and a television, which my father never watches, and we can get internet connection, which my father never uses, but only by swiping the Wi-Fi signal from a nearby warehouse for a moving and storage company. And we have a shed that houses 2 pigs and 11 or 12 or 15 or 4 chickens. The count varies from day to day because sometimes a few of the chickens, the smart ones, take it on themselves to leave. The not so smart chickens not only come back, I don't know why, but every now and then they'll bring a new chicken with them. I don't have a clue where they get the new ones since we are surrounded by, in addition to the previously mentioned warehouse, a plastic shopping bag manufacturer, a ready-mix concrete supplier, a sheriff's impound lot, a school bus depot, an office furniture wholesaler, a shipping transfer station, and a garage for city garbage trucks. There are no neighbors with chickens, or even houses with people for that matter. Add to the picture you're forming of where we live, our rich life kind of place, a rebuilt, recycled, rehabbed 1951 Chevy half-ton pickup made mostly of dents so deep you can see little puddles here and there in the hood after a rain. A truck my father says is not only immortal, but an absolute classic. Parked in the mud near the trailer, and you get a rough idea of how rich we really are. The truck has, I kid you not, an antique AM radio with what Dad says are vacuum tubes instead of transistors. So it doesn't come on right away, but has to warm up first. It works, but only seems to get country songs and some crazy fast talking man whose voice slam booms loud enough to make your ears bleed as he offers to sell autographed pictures of biblical heroes, including Jesus Christ. Oh, there's a garden, a huge and extensive garden that we keep alive with river water pumped by an old sump pump my father repaired. He's a true marvel at fixing things and making them last. For example, the old truck. We grow all the vegetables we eat, although sometimes I swear they taste a little like the solvent and chemical runoff that we think are illegally dumped in the river by the nearby businesses. We feed the pigs leftover scraps from our own food, like potato peelings and cuttings from the garden, and stuff from the dumpster in the back of the grocery store. And every fall, a man comes with a small stock truck and takes the pigs away. A week later, he brings back pork chops and bacon and hams wrapped in wax paper with stamped labels. We put the packages in an old rejuvenated freezer. See 1951 Chevy truck, page 6, sump pump, page 7. And after we forget a little about the individual personality of the pigs, which is the reason we never name them in the first place, we have meat for a year. My father says whether you buy the meat in the store or you raise the livestock yourself, you cause the same end for the pigs. And if you take the responsibility for your own meat supply, then at least you know it's a higher quality and you're not being quite as hypocritical. Same as a tomato you grow yourself, or eggs from your own chickens. But the whole pig growing and eating process bothers him all the same. And when the truck comes to get our animals, he has to turn away and not watch them leave. Pooter, who's my best friend and who I see every day, even when we don't have school, says he likes our place better than his. More on that later. His real name is Peter Haskell, but he insists on being called Pooter because there was an old time actor named Peter Haskell who had a bunch of bit roles on TV shows he can't remember the name of, and he doesn't want people to confuse them. Anyway, Pooter says we, my dad and I, are about 3/4 of an inch from becoming vegans, or at least vegetarians, because of how we raise our own meat and then feel bad about eating it. Considering that Pooter lives on hot dogs, Slim Jims, and chicken nuggets, which he admits are sludgy goop extruded. Great word, extruded. It means pressure squirting leftover chicken bits into nugget shaped molds and then deep fried in fat. And has never, literally never, eaten anything that didn't come in a box or a can or a to go carton. He thinks vegetarianism is something on the order of crazy cult religion. Pooter says if I ever become a full on health food fanatic, we'll still be best friends, except he won't want to walk too close to me or get sneezed on in case he might catch it. I'm not offended by that, but I did start to keep a little distance from him in case the extruded meat loving thing might be contagious too. Because I once saw him eat an entire large can of those little gray Vienna sausages with his fingers and then drink the juice, even though it says on the side of the can that they are made of something called, wait for it, meat byproducts, which my dad says are lips and eyelids and noses and the skin around other body openings, and maybe even roadkill, because if you say something as vague as meat byproducts, you're as good as admitting that you know it could be anything. Dad says that in these giant factories, they go ahead and feed whatever's left over around the meat processing plant through a big old grinder and let it hit the extruder, and boom, there's your meat byproducts right there. You never know. Dad says you just never know what you're getting from so-called big meat. I don't want to make anybody sick with talk of industrial waste flavored veggies and mystery meat, but I thought you should know about my dad and Pooter and how they think, because they figure into the story we're working on here. So you've got me, Dad, Pooter, and the chickens, and then, of course, our dog, Carol, who is a rescued pit bull we found limping alongside the road near a part of town you don't want to go unless you are looking for trouble. Carol is all scars from where bad people had forced her into illegal dog fights. But she's very sweet to us and super protective about anything she thinks belongs to us, including people we're friendly with. but everything else is just plain toast. And she's absolute murder to any skunk that comes wandering along the river and makes a run on our chickens. She tears them to shreds and scatters the strips around the yard. And since that happens at least once a week all summer long, she always smells so bad flies won't even land on her. Dad loves her, but he also says she sits on our little porch gazing over her world, watching and waiting for anything she perceives as a threat so she can go into attack mode. According to him, she's a loving land based white shark. And if you could hold her up and just right and look into her mouth, you'd be able to see straight out her butt. He calls Carol a killing tube, who also happens to like sitting on the couch like a person, getting hugged, and watching television, before going to sleep next to you in a bed on her back, snoring like an old drunk. What's not to love, he says. By now, you've probably gotten the idea that Dad's a really nice guy, and you'd be flat out right. He's friendly to everyone he meets, and he's always been good to me. So I can see where it might become confusing to learn that the time came when his way of thinking started to drive me absolutely nuts. And I couldn't stand it, or him, or the way we lived another minute. So that was the first chapter in How to Train Your Dad by Gary Paulsen. Like I said earlier, this could very well be his very last book, as he has just recently passed away. This book follows Carl, who is getting increasingly worried about how kids at school, especially a particular girl, might perceive his life with his dad. And he finds this pamphlet on how to train your puppy and uses the tips he finds in there to see if he can change his dad. And it has some unintended consequences. It is a funny and heartwarming story about living green and the importance of family, and I hope you enjoy it. We have it here in our library. It should be in most school libraries and public libraries, or you can always buy your own copy. Happy reading.